In today's video, I'm going to be installing the EG4 9000 BTU single zone mini split. Now, I've already had one of these running in my bedroom for almost 2 years now, and it's ran so perfect. I mean, flawlessly, using so little electricity. I wanted to put another one at the other side of the house in a spare bedroom. Now, this mini split is a 29.5 SEER 2 rated unit, which means it is extremely energy efficient. I mean, it's the most energy efficient one that is a DIY unit, which basically means it's pre-charged with refrigerant. This is the most energy efficient one I have found. Now, if you guys have found one better, I'd love to hear about it. Make sure you put that in the comments if there is, and I'll check that out. But if you're looking to save money on electricity, or if you're like me and you have an off-grid style solar system where technically I'm not off-grid, I still do have grid as my backup just in case I don't have enough solar or battery storage, this unit really helps, especially at night, to help keep me off-grid, not ever using the grid as my backup power. So that is my main reason for it, but if your reason is just to save electricity, this is an awesome unit to consider. So I'll leave a link in the description of this video to where you can purchase this unit, along with any discount code they've given me. Now, as I mentioned, this unit is pre-charged with refrigerant, which means it comes from the factory already with refrigerant in it. Now, the hardest part about installing an air conditioning unit like this is having to add refrigerant. It takes special equipment, special knowledge. Really, you need a licensed HVAC technician to do that. But with this being DIY or pre-charged with refrigerant, you can do this yourself without the help of an expensive HVAC technician. Now, my goal is to put this unit in a guest bedroom, but I'm going to position it on the wall where it actually blows out towards the door, so I can open that door to the hallway and let it help to cool my entire house. So make sure you stay till the end of this video, because I'm going to see how my house can do, which is 2,000 square feet, with just those two mini splits running, the 9000 BT unit in my bedroom and the other one in the guest bedroom, and see, since they're on opposite sides of the house, how well it can keep my house cool by just leaving the doors open. So we'll see. So there's a few manufacturers making these DIY units now, where they're pre-charged with refrigerant. So even if you're not looking to install this exact unit from EG4, watching this install video is going to help you, because they're pretty much all the same when you install these. So let's get started on the install now. So basically there are 3 main steps you're going to have to do. You're going to have to mount the indoor unit, or the head unit. You're going to have to mount the outdoor unit as well. And then you're going to have to connect it to power somehow. So now let's get started on the install. This is the location I'm going to be mounting the unit. And this is a 180 square foot bedroom, so I'm actually locating it where it's going to blow directly out the door into the hallway, where it'll kind of help cool the rest of the house, since this is a little bit of an overkill, 9000 BTUs for this bedroom. And then I'll take that cover, that outlet off. I will remove the outlet, and I will punch a hole directly outside and mount a little disconnect right on the other side of this wall here, and that's where our power will be. So I'll just be connecting it right to this 20 amp circuit that runs the outlets along on each wall here in the bedroom. Okay, so what I'm doing here is making sure I am not too close to the wall or the ceiling. Basically, you have 5 inches all the way around of clearance. Now, there is a measurement for down below. It says it has to be 8 feet high. Just ignore that. That does not matter. It can be, mine's only going to be about 6.5 feet high, which is fine. Now, here they have a template that you can use, which is extremely helpful to put this thing up. It'll show you exactly where the bracket is going to go, exactly where you need to punch the hole in the wall for the line set. And obviously, you want it to be level. So what I'm doing here is putting a level on it to make sure of that. Now I'm drilling a hole, or going to drill a hole, right where the line set's going to go, the center of it. So I've got a mark on my wall for where I need to drill a nice big 2 3/4 inch hole. And I'm also going to pre-drill here just where these screws are going. And you are going to want to make sure there's studs. I was only able to line up with 2 studs on this. That's probably how you're going to be as well. So if you can't do a third, there's not going to be a third stud there, you can just use these little hurricane anchors that I will show you here in a minute. So as you can see, I punched a lot of holes in my wall. I was doing that looking for a stud to begin with, instead of using a stud finder, which I didn't have. And since the unit's going to cover the wall, no big deal. Now here I'm using a really long drill bit to basically punch a hole all the way through to the outside, so I know exactly where I need to also drill a circular hole for where the line set's going to pop out. And now I'm using a 2 3/4 inch hole saw to cut the first hole there. It says you can use a 2.5 inch. I felt better with a 2 3/4 inch personally, as long as you don't go too low. Um, it'll fit better. At least that was my experience. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the bracket, and you can put the bracket on the wall by itself to make this thing really easy to just kind of snap in place. And it's only one screw holding it in there. And you've got a bunch of anchors. I'm going to use hurricane anchors, which I will show you later in this video instead of the ones they give me. I just like the anchors better. And they also give you all the screws needed to screw it into the wall, that bracket. So now what I'm going to do here is cut the bracket completely so it looks exactly the same size as the bracket. Then I know I can just mark around the sides, get it level, and I know exactly where that bracket is going to be hanging. So what I'm doing now is just tracing around the exact where I'm going to put that metal bracket. So now since I have those lines already drawn, I can put the bracket right in place, and I can put a level on it, make sure, triple check that it's level, and then I can dot all of the holes where I'm going to need to screw in those drywall anchors because there's not a stud. So here are the drywall anchors I use. They hold like 75 pounds each one, which is more than enough. You can get them at Home Depot. You use a little drill bit, a little bit smaller than the anchor itself. And what I'm doing here is just pre-drilling those holes in the drywall. And then I'm going to basically take those hurricane anchors by hand and just kind of get them started, just kind of screw it into the existing hole that I just pre-drilled, and then use my drill with a Phillips bit to put them in all the way. It's actually a real simple install with these. Now you have to have your holes exactly right though, which is why I kind of pre-dotted them with a Sharpie marker. And now I'm putting one screw into the bracket, and then what I will do is I'll put a level on it, and I know I can hit a stud on the other side there because I drilled a bunch of holes and found the stud to make sure. And there we go. So now I've got the bracket on the wall. I'm going to add a few screws here and there just to make sure it's secure. Now here I'm on the outside, again, because I knew where that hole was from using that long drill bit. I'm using the hole saw that's 2 3/4 inch to prepare to get the line set all the way through. So here I'm opening the cover to be able to put on the initial electrical connection. In order to do that, I'm going to have to actually feed it through the back side. So the cord they give you, you'll see it here in a minute. So I'm going to flip this unit over. First, I'm going to shut it. And this is the cable they give you, which is more than enough length to get all the way outside and down to your unit on the outside. So they're already pre-crimped with these forks. Now you're going to slide one of the ends here through this little hole and just kind of keep pushing it. And then when you feel it kind of stop, then you can flip the unit over. And then once you open the cover, you'll be able to see and grab and pull the rest of the slack that you need. So there you go. You can see that it's sticking out right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up each of the screws. And each of these screws are actually numbered, making it really easy. They're numbered right on the screws there, right above the screws. And then on the wires, you'll see a number as well. You just correspond 1 to 1, 2 to 2, and 3 to 3. Very simple. So I'm backing out the screw just a hair and then tightening it back down. Give them a good tug, make sure they're on there secure. Put the cover back on. The cover only has one screw, so it's very easy. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to bend the line set. Now you want to be really careful when you're bending these because you can actually pinch the lines, the copper lines. So be very careful there. Here I'm connecting the water line. It just kind of slides in, and I'm putting a little bit of duct tape over it just to make sure it never separates over time and I don't get a waterfall going down my interior wall from this thing. So I attach that, and now I'm running the hose just kind of carefully where it's not getting crimped, it's not getting pinched. And you'll notice I'm attaching it to the bottom of the line set there because I want to make sure it's gravity, right, feeding downward. You don't want to line it or push that hose up because then water will start backing up in the indoor unit and it'll come back down your wall. So you definitely don't want that. So make sure that is taped on the bottom. You'll see me wrapping it with duct tape here just to make it secure, to make it very easy to be able to slide through that 2 3/4 inch hole that I put in the wall. And you'll see me struggle with that in a minute here. And I'm just adding a little bit of extra duct tape just to make sure that water hose is secure for the long term right there. All right, so what I'm going to do now is just start fishing the water line, the electrical line, and then you'll see once I get all of those lines through, all the slack out to the outside, then I will lift the unit up and push the Freon lines all the way through as well. Now, there is a little ring that you can put in that you can kind of see that I have there. They give it to you. It just kind of fits in that hole just to kind of decorate it. I really don't even see a need for it. The unit's going to cover that hole anyways. So this is the interesting part. I recommend having two people for this if you can. I mean, I did it by myself, but you're going to see it's not an easy task to perform on your own. You have to hold the whole unit up with one hand and then try to feed all the water line, the electrical line, and the Freon lines at the same time through that hole. So highly recommend a second person right here to not struggle as much as you're going to see me struggle here. But I eventually did get it in. So if you are the only one available, you can get it done. Just be careful. Now, when you're pushing it on the bracket, it just snaps into place. So you got to kind of lift it above the bracket a little bit and then let it kind of slide down onto it. So the back kind of hinges first, and then you just push the unit toward the wall, like the bottom area of the unit toward the wall, and it just kind of snaps into place. It's really hard for me to show that. I mean, you'll get a feel for it. You'll know once it's in place. You'll feel it snap in there. And then obviously check with a level. Make sure it's level. I did it on the first try. Thank you, God. What I use is this gaps and crack sealer that you can get for like $6 or $7 at Home Depot just to fill the wall cavity to make sure I don't get any bugs, insects, wasps, or air escaping, obviously. It's just going to help with insulation. So I highly recommend getting that. Now they do give you a little pack of putty that you can use to help seal it as well. I really didn't even use that. I just wanted to use the crack sealer. And now what I'm doing here is bending the Freon lines slightly to get them angled down the wall into a 90-degree bend. Again, be very careful with this part. Make sure you don't kink the hoses. Now it's time for the wall bracket. It's very simple to install. They just kind of slide together and then you can bolt it down in place. There's actually a little level built into, you can see right in the middle, right above my left arm there. So you can make sure you're level as well. And it comes with the lag screws to be able to put it into the wall very securely. So what I do is just mark where I want to put the holes. Now I'm pre-drilling that hole for that lag screw on both ends. And then what I'm going to do is just put one of the pieces up to make it easy. Double check that it's level. Again, I don't need to use a level because there is a level bubble on there. And I will link to that bracket as well that Signature Solar sells. And then you just slide on the little arm brackets. It's very simple. Now the arm brackets, you're going to want them about 21 inch, just a hair over 21 inches, about 21 inch and a quarter is where those feet need to line up to be able to line up with the actual screw holes on the outdoor unit itself. Now I'm going to use a couple deck screws here just to secure the bottom of those brackets or those bracket arms in place. Now I am measuring to make sure I'm about 21 1/4 inches right here apart from each of those. Now, as you can see, they do wobble a little bit, the bottom kind of feet there. So you do have a little bit of play, so you don't have to be exact. But what I'm doing here is just checking to make sure I have that 21 1/4 inch spacing. Now I'm going to secure those arms where they're at with those deck screws. And now I'm checking to make sure I'm level across as well. I mean, I should be because the top was level. So unfortunately, I forgot to hit the record button when I lifted this up. And actually, I had help with this. This is a two-man job. Do not try to do this by yourself. but you just lift it right on there. There's that rubber grommet that goes between the actual feet on the unit and the leg of the bracket, and you're literally just putting a lock washer on there and a nut. Very simple, and then tighten those down with a crescent wrench or a couple ratchets. But not hard at all. There is a little bit of play there, as you can see in the bottom. Now, there is an area to put screws in the bottom, so I went ahead after the unit was secure and screwed these extra screws at the bottom corner. Probably an overkill, but hey, better safe than sorry. Next step here is to remove the cover where all of the electrical connections are. And there's about 5 or 6 screws before you're going to be able to get this piece off. Now, this is where both your electrical connection coming from that indoor unit is going to hit, as well as the power coming from your disconnect, or which is going to be mounted on the wall, right where that outlet was that I showed you on the other side of the outlet. So this is what the inside looks like. They have a couple more barcodes here. Looks like model, serial numbers in case you need to identify that. Of course, there's one right there on the right of the screen as well. And again, they have these all numbered 1, 2, 3, line, and neutral. Very easy. So this is the little cover that I pulled off initially. These just unscrew, and you're going to just throw those away. You're not going to need them. And they just come out by unscrewing it. Now, I use these little 2-screw connectors. Actually, you only need one on there. The other one's going to come with your little disconnect whip. So for some reason, I put 2 on, not thinking I was going to have that. And in fact, you really want to use a weatherproof connector instead of this 2-screw connector that I'm using. I'll actually link to those in the description of the video, but this is all I had on me and I really wanted to get it connected. But that is not a weatherproof connection, and this is outside. So I would recommend just buying a couple of those. Now, here is the connection from the indoor unit to the electrical there. As you can see, it's numbered, it secures under that little plastic. Now, I did put the cover back on after I did that because I'm not quite ready to install the power, incoming power from the disconnect yet. That's going to go where that other 2-screw connector is. And of course, I'm going to remove that. I don't even need it. They have this little drain, kind of, I guess it's kind of an outlet, kind of a hose that if you want to put on there, I mean, you don't have to. I did. I'm not going to add a pipe to it. It's just going to drip straight down onto the ground from there. Now it's time to actually get this thing connected to power. So this outlet is right underneath the indoor unit. As you can see, the outlet's hot right now. So obviously, before we work on this, we got to turn off the power. So this is on a 15 amp circuit. So I am going to turn that off and then double check. And as you can see here, the lights in the room went off too. So the lights are on that same circuit. And so now I'm going to remove that cover and I'm going to pull this outlet out and kind of get it out of the way so I can drill a hole straight through that indoor, that box, that outlet box in the corner of it to get to the outside. So one of these outlets is just 2 screws, a top and a bottom screw. And then I'm going to pull that outlet as much slack as I have in those wires and get that outlet out of the way without disconnecting it. Now, keep in mind the manual does not say to install power like this. It says to install a dedicated circuit for it, but this has worked for me for the last 2 years on my other one, so I'm going with it like this. Now I'm going to use about a 3/4 inch hole saw here, or a butterfly bit, and I'm going to push that and do a pretty decent sized hole right there in the corner of the box. Be very, very careful here not to hit any of those wires. You don't want to nick those things and cause a short or a potential fire down the road. So now I've got a hole there, and now I'm going to use that long bit again so I can get all the way to the outside so I can see exactly where that hole is going to be on the outside, because that's where we're going to mount our disconnect, which is going to be our incoming power to the outdoor, the main unit there. So as you can see, I can see daylight, so I made it to the outside. Now let's go outside and check it. So there's that hole. Now I'm going to take that same butterfly bit and drill that out bigger so I can easily get the wires and the 2-screw connector that's going to be on the back of this disconnect into that hole. All right, so I've got the hole done now. Now I need to get that disconnect ready to go. This is the disconnect I use. It is a fusible one, so it's got 2 fuses on it. You don't have to get a fusible one if you don't want to. I just decided I wanted to. to have that extra protection in case there is a spike, lightning strike, that kind of stuff. They won't damage the unit. Now I do have an EMP shield as well that I can link to in the description of this video as well that kind of protects my whole house from surges. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check out that link. So what I'm doing here is just knocking out one side. On the side, that's where the power from this box to the actual outdoor unit on the mini split is going to go. To knock out these holes, you just basically take a hammer and a screwdriver and just make sure you're not knocking out too many of these rings. As you'll see, the first one I did was a 1/2 inch hole. That fit good. This hole, I actually need to be a 3/4 inch. So, and what I did right there is just pulled out the 1/2 inch piece. And now I'm trying to put the 2 screw connector in. And as you can see here, it's not going to quite fit. And that kind of surprised me. I thought that was going to fit, but it's not. So I need to take out one more of those rings. Again, just use the screwdriver and a hammer, and you're just going to tap, not too hard, but not too gentle either. Um, and you're going to notice those rings are just going to kind of bend out. And then you can just use a pair of channel locks like I have here, just kind of squeeze it and then bend it back and forth. And you'll see those just come right out very easily. Just like that. Now the 2 screw connectors should fit inside that. So you put the 2 screw connector through, and then you put the little lock ring on it. And then if I hold one side and just twist the other side with the screws really tight, it'll lock on there really good. Now what I'm doing is I'm pushing through this 12-2 romex that I am going to hook up to the outlet on the inside of the house and connect that to the terminals on the box there. So I'm tightening the screws down right there to clamp down so that wire can't slide at all. Now we're ready to mount the box. So I'm pushing one side of that romex through the wall, trying to fish it to make sure it gets through that hole we drilled in the inside outlet box. There we go. Now there's a couple holes already pre-drilled into this box. I can just use a couple deck screws, 1.5 inch deck screws, and just secure that box. Actually, I put one screw first, then put a level on it, make sure the box is level because I want it to look pretty. And then added one more screw into that. All right, the box is now secure. Now it's time to put the fuses in. I'll link to the exact fuses I used here. If you just push them, they just kind of slide right into those slots, and that allows power to go from one side to the other side. And if there's a surge, those fuses will pop, protecting the unit from getting that surge. So what I'm doing now is using a razor knife to cut right through the romex wire. I only need about 8-9 inches of wire, so you can see I'm trimming some of that back. Now I'm actually peeling the cover, that yellow cover, and there's like a little insulated like almost like paper wrapping inside it. So I'm pulling the wires, separating the wires from that rubber piece. Now I'm cutting those off, or cutting the romex cover and the paper off. I'm not cutting the wires, obviously. Now I'm stripping the wires and actually securing them onto the terminals inside this box. So that is going to be our incoming power. Once we have these wires in there, this box is going to be hot. And this is what it's going to finish, not the finish, but the finish from the incoming power from that outlet is going to look like. You'll notice I haven't connected the outlet on the other side yet because I don't like working on anything that could potentially be hot. So I'm making all of the connections even to the outdoor unit before I even connect it to the inside wall outlet. So this is a whip that I bought on Amazon. It's made for basically ACs, air conditioning. I will link to this as well in the description of the video. But what I'm doing now is pushing the wire through, putting the lock ring on it. It comes with an outdoor connector. And I'm just tightening that now and having those wires sticking out about a good 9, maybe 10 inches. So now what I'm gonna have to do is strip those wires. And before I actually even do that, you'll notice there's a red wire there. There's black, red, and green. Typically that's 2 different hot legs and a ground. But since this is 120 volts for me in this unit, I actually taped that red wire white. So to be able to identify it, to say, hey, that's a neutral wire. That is not a hot wire.
So you can see here's exactly how I wired the finished look to it. Now this box is ready to go. So now I ended up hooking the other side of the whip up. Very simple. The L is the hot, the neutral is the red wire that I taped white, and then the ground kind of goes out to the left there. And that's it. That's all there is to wiring this thing. Now it's time to connect the final power to that outlet on the inside of the house. So I need about 8 inches of this yellow Romex 12T wire, so I'm cutting off any excess I had there. And now what I'm going to do is use my razor knife. Again, just cut a strip right through the middle. You usually don't catch any wires when you do this. Now I just take off that jacket, push the wires out to the side so I don't risk cutting those when I'm cutting back that the sheet of Romex kind of cover and that paper there. So I'm cutting that off now. Now what I need to do is strip all of those wires, and it's number 12 wire, so you will need a pair of wire strippers to do that. I strip out about, I'd say about 3/4 of an inch. And then what I do is I put a little hook on each of the ones, at least the hot and the neutral wire. Actually, I do the same thing for the ground in this scenario here. And there's a little hole on your wire strippers where you can actually bend a little hook on there. Now what I'm going to do is connect the white wire, the neutral wire, to the silver screws. So there's silver screws on one side and there's gold looking screws on one side. The silver is actually the neutral wire, so I'm connecting the neutral wire to that screw. And then I'm going to connect the ground to the ground screw, which is the green one, towards the top of that outlet. And then on the other side, you see those yellow screws. I'm loosening up one of those yellow screws. That's the hot side. And I am putting the black wire or the black hook that I made, and I am wrapping that around the screw there and then tightening that screw back down. And once I tighten that screw, this is complete. Then I need to find a way to kind of fish all those wires and fold them back into the box, which is always a little bit of a challenge. Take your time there. Make sure you're not messing up any connections by pushing too hard. And that's it. Put the outlet cover back on, and we are ready to go back to the panel and hot this thing up. So I'm going to put my tester back in there. There we go. We turned on the power, and there we go. Everything looks good. So we should have power now to the outside unit. Now it's time to do the Freon lines. So there is 2 different Freon lines, and they are 2 different sizes, so you can't accidentally connect them to the wrong port or anything on the unit. So they make that dummy proof. So I'm rolling out about 6, maybe 7 feet here, and I'm leaving the rest coiled up. And reason being is I only need about 6 to 7 feet from where that hole is in the house, that 2 3/4 inch hole, to get all the way down to the unit. So because this is pre-charged, you're not going to be able to cut these lines off or make them shorter. You're just going to have to kind of coil up any excess behind the unit, which you'll see here in a minute. Now what I'm doing is I took one of the lines, it doesn't matter which one you connect first, and I'm going to screw or thread them in to the ones coming from the indoor unit that I bent down the wall. Now take your time here. It's kind of hard to get them threaded sometimes. Now some people use nylog blue, which is a little like kind of like glue you can use to help with the seal. The instructions did not say to do that, so I did not. And I've done it. I didn't use it on the other unit either, never had a leak. So I connected the one hose. Now I'm connecting the other Freon line. And I use a couple of pairs of crescent wrenches, or I think maybe it was one crescent wrench and one pair of channel locks to basically screw them tight. You don't want to over tighten also. So, but get them definitely snug because you don't want any leaks. So now that I've got the hoses, the Freon lines connected at the top, now it's time to connect them to the actual unit. To do that, you have to take the cover off, which is just a couple screws. Cover slides right off. And then you've got these little yellow caps that come with the unit. Just unscrew those and trash them. You're not going to need those anymore. Now it's time to kind of uncoil whatever amount you need and screw them onto the outdoor unit. So take your time with this. Again, you don't want to crimp any of these hoses or bend. You can bend them slightly is fine, but you don't want to hear them pinch. And you'll know it if you do. You'll kind of feel it just give way and there'll be no tension. So what I'm doing here is, again, you can't mess this up. The hoses are 2 different sizes. So and you'll be able to see which one fits on what just by eyeballing it. Take your time. Sometimes it's hard to get the thread started on this. It took me actually probably a minute or two to get the threads to go on there right. And then I'm just using a crescent wrench to tighten it all the way down. Then do that same process as you see here that I'm doing with the other Freon line. And then try to coil up any excess as neatly as you can behind the unit so it's not too much of an eyesore. All right, so you see I made the final connection here with that other Freon line. I tightened it down. Now it's time to remove these little caps. And this is where we're going to release the Freon into the whole system now. So the Freon that is trapped inside the unit is going to be released after we take these caps off. And they give you a Allen wrench that comes with the unit. Now you can use that one or any one that you have. And then inside there's basically an Allen wrench nut you're going to loosen up. And the minute you turn it to the left, you'll hear the Freon start to flow through the lines. That's normal, that's fine. And you want to unscrew this nut until it stops unscrewing. Don't do it too much. Once you feel it stop, just stop right there and you are done. Then all you're going to do is put the cap back on it and tighten the cap back down with a crescent wrench, and you're good to go. Then follow that same step, that same process on the other Freon line. And then this unit is ready to be turned on, and then we are going to check it for leaks. That is why I haven't insulated it or wrapped any tape around the lines that are coming out of the wall up top, because we definitely need to check and make sure we didn't mess up and there's no Freon leaking, or in a few weeks, the unit won't be getting cold, won't be blowing cold air anymore. So I just took some soap and water here, sprayed all of the connections, which there's 4 of them. There's 2 at the bottom there on that you see that I'm spraying right now, and there's 2 at the top where I have to go up on the ladder, the lines that came out of the indoor unit where those connections are. Now, you'll notice when there's a leak here, you'll start to see like expanding bubbles. It would be pretty obvious if there's a leak. So as you can see, everything looks good. There's no bubbles. So I know I am good to go. Now I'm checking to make sure I have good power. I've got my meter here. I'm taking these 2 needles, and I should be getting about 120 volts across the hot and the neutral line, or the hot and the ground line. And I have 121.9 volts, so I am good to go. I've got good power. Now let's turn on the unit for the first time and see if it works. Yep, turned right on. Now, these do come set in Celsius, and the instructions are pitiful in telling you how to change it to Fahrenheit. So I will walk you through that later on in this video. I had to figure that out. Actually, I had to reach out to the manufacturer to make sure on how to do that. So they do give you these little pieces of insulation as well. I'm wrapping that around any exposed pieces. And now it's time to go ahead and put, now they do give you like the UV tape. They give you kind of a roll of UV tape you can wrap all the way around. I ended up just using duct tape. You can use that tape if you want, but I didn't feel the need to use UV tape because I'm putting a cover, line set cover over it anyways. So it will not be exposed to the elements, but I am duct taping it nice and neat, making sure to not crimp that water, that drain line hose, and just duct taping the whole thing all the way down to about the top of the back of the unit. Now this is the line set cover that I purchased. It's metal and it's white. It's about $100 on Amazon. I've tried using the cheap plastic ones before and I'm not happy with those. So I ended up kind of upgrading to a little better, and I'm glad I did. This is a real easy, clean looking piece of equipment here, line set cover. It does come with all the screws you need. And even if you have anchors for masonry, it comes with that. Now I have wood siding, so, and they actually come with numbers. Not sure if you can see the number, but you're going to want to start with number 1 because they each get a little tiny bit bigger in sequence. And I slid it down just below the back of the unit so you can't see any of the lines coming up from behind the unit. They come pre-drilled with holes, so it's very simple to install. And then you just overlap the next one slightly. So now I'm taking the number 2 piece, putting it on there, adding a screw or a couple screws, and just doing that all the way. And then the last one I use where there's an actual end cap. And that one's a little bit bigger. So there's the end cap right there. You can't really see it, but the top is completely sealed. So rain, sunlight can't get through there. And then I'm just using the deck screws or like the wood screws that came with the line set cover. So I really like the finish. It's very clean. It took me about, I don't know, 10 minutes to install this thing. So I'll leave a link to that, an Amazon link to that in the description of this video as well. So this is what the unit looks like finished. Again, you have to coil up the wires or the Freon lines and the electrical line, the extra of that. I'm not a huge fan. I put some zip ties around it, tried to make it look as clean as possible. So I could probably do a little bit better of a job, but I'm trying to be quick here to get this video released. I've had the unit running for probably about 30, 45 minutes. So I wanted to go ahead and do a check on how cold it was getting. I'm getting in the low 40s. So I am pretty happy with that temperature of air coming out of there. Okay, so as you can see, we are still in Celsius. So now I'm going to show you, so you can see 16 degrees, how to change it. So what you do is you need to hold the up and the down arrow at the same time and just hold it down and you'll see it switch. So you're seeing it switch from 16 to 61. So I've got it set at 61 degrees right now. And the lights on the unit don't change until you actually press the up or down arrow to change the temperature, and then it automatically switches. And they give you this mount to be able to just go ahead and mount it right by your light switch. Now let's go through the app. The app is very easy to use. You can see you can just tap down to get the temperature down if you want. They do tell you how many watts you're using. I just clicked on the fan button here. There's turbo, high, mid, low, or auto. If you just slide up from the bottom there, you can turn off the light, you can change the mode. Here's the different modes. You got auto, cool, wind, dry, hot. So if you want to turn on the heater, there's wind if you want to just do a quick defrost. There's also scheduling. You can set a schedule if you'd like. Very simple. Again, you can just tap which day you want, set it to on, off. It'll even send you a push notification. They also have where you can see how much energy you've used over time. So if you want to track that, it's very easy to do by day or by month. So the app is very user-friendly. I'm very happy with that app for sure.
So as you can see, this unit is very easy to install. It took me a total of about, I would say, 6 to 7 hours from start to finish to install this thing. So this can easily be done by you, by yourself, really for almost all of it, except for lifting that outdoor unit in a weekend project. Now let's go over how it's been performing. So I've been running this for about now 6 or 7 days. And we've had some 81, 82 degree temperature days, and just running the two EG4 9000 BTU mini splits in each of the rooms and letting that air just kind of percolate, leaving the doors open in those bedrooms, letting that go into the living room, kitchen, dining room. I've been able to keep my house at about 70 degrees with just using those two units. And keep in mind, this is using less than 1,000 watts of electricity while these two units are running combined. So that's very energy efficient to keep your house cool. And when you compare that to me having to run my big 4-ton traditional air conditioning unit, which uses 3,500 watts to run, you can see there's quite a dramatic energy savings there. We've also had a couple days of 90, 91 degree temps, and just running those two mini splits, I was able to keep my house at about 71 degrees. And I just have average insulation. This is not like amazing spray foam that I have on my walls. I'm sure you have at least as good of insulation as me, and maybe better. Now we had a big test yesterday, which the temperature got to 101 degrees where I'm at, which is unseasonably hot here in Texas for mid-May. But just running these two mini splits again, I was able to keep my house at 73 degrees. So that was just incredible for me to see. Now I do have a big 2-ton mini split in my living room. I intentionally kept that off just to see how these two units can do, just blowing out those doors and into the living room. So I am extremely impressed with this unit. If you are in the market for a mini split, like a single zone type mini split, definitely check this one out, the 9000 BTU unit. At 29.5 SEER 2 rating, that's incredible. Now they also have, if you need a little bigger one, they also have a 12,000 BTU unit as well. That's about a 28.5 SEER, I believe. I'll link to that unit as well in the description of this video, so you can check that one out if you need it. But they also have a 2-ton unit, 24K BTU unit, if you want to go a little bit bigger. Now that one is still efficient, but just not quite as efficient as the 12K BTU unit and the 9K BTU unit. That's it for now, everyone. Make sure to like this video, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts, especially if you found another mini split that's a DIY with pre-charged refrigerant that you think is more efficient. I definitely want to check that out. And make sure to subscribe to this channel if you found this video helpful and you want to see more videos just like this. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next video.